Watch this emotionally charged story unfold as a brilliant law student. Alina Martinez meets the enigmatic Judge Sebastian Rivera in the most unexpected way. What starts as an academic encounter spirals into a dangerous game of secrets, betrayal, and forbidden love that will leave you breathless. Greetings, fellow dreamers. This tale is filled with love, secrets, and a twist you'll never forget. Let's dig in. Asterisk. The courtroom smelled of old wood and broken dreams. Judge Sebastian Rivera sat behind the mahogany bench, his green eyes cold as winter glass, watching another life crumble before him. The defendant, a young mother clutching a tissue, sobbed as he delivered his verdict. Guilty. 2 years minimum security. Sebastian felt nothing. He had trained himself not to feel. The gavel struck wood with finality. As the courtroom emptied, Sebastian loosened his black robes, his hands steady despite the bourbon he'd consumed the night before. At 39, he was Spain's youngest Supreme Court appointee, a man who had clawed his way from the gutters of Seville to the highest echelons of justice. What nobody knew was that every verdict he delivered was paid for in blood. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. The girl knows. Handle it. Sebastian's jaw tightened. After 3 years of playing puppet to the Mendoza crime family, he thought he was untouchable. Apparently someone had been asking the wrong questions. 2 hours later, he stood outside the Universidad Complutense, watching students stream across the cobblestone courtyard. His handler had been specific. There. Was a law student digging into cases connected to their operation? Someone who needed to be silenced before she uncovered the web of corruption that kept Sebastian alive and kept his sister hidden. He spotted her immediately. Alina Martinez sat alone on a stone bench, her dark hair catching the afternoon sun. As she scribbled furiously in a notebook, she looked so young, so determined, completely unaware that she was about to become collateral damage. Sebastian approached her with measured steps, his cover story ready. He was here to guest lecture, to inspire young minds. Not to destroy one, Miss Martinez? His voice carried the authority that had intimidated countless defendants. Looked up, and Sebastian felt something crack inside his chest. Her eyes held a fire he recognized from his own mirror years ago, before the world had beaten it out of him, before he had made the choice that damned them both. I'm Judge Rivera, he continued, sitting beside her without invitation. I understand. You've been researching some interesting cases. Alina's grip tightened on her pen. Researching. I wouldn't call it that, Your Honor. I'd call it following a trail of judicial corruption that leads straight to some very powerful people. Sebastian's blood went cold. She wasn't just asking questions. She had answers. That's a dangerous path for a young woman to walk alone, he said softly. Is that a threat? Alina's chin lifted defiantly. Sebastian looked into her fierce eyes and realized with sudden, devastating clarity that he was already too late. He was falling for the very woman he had been sent to destroy. 3 weeks of guest. Lectures had become 3 weeks of exquisite torture. Sebastian sat in his hotel room, staring at case files he couldn't concentrate on while Alina's voice echoed in his mind. Her questions during class grew sharper each day, her research deeper, her suspicions more dangerous. And yet he couldn't stay away. A knock at his door made him freeze. It was past midnight. Only one person knew where he was staying. Alina stood in the hallway, her hair loose around her shoulders, wearing jeans and an oversized sweater that made her look impossibly young and impossibly beautiful. I know who you really are, she said without preamble. Sebastian's hand moved instinctively toward the gun hidden in his jacket, then stopped. Do you Judge Sebastian Rivera? Born Sebastian Cruz in the slums of Seville? Sister Maria disappeared when you were 17. Graduated law school under suspicious circumstances. Fast-tracked to the Supreme Court with backing from people who don't usually invest in justice. Every word hit like a physical blow. Sebastian stepped aside, letting her enter his room. If she was going to destroy him, better it happen in private. Lena walked to his window, looking out at Madrid's glittering skyline. The question is, why is a corrupt judge pretending to teach constitutional law to idealistic students? Maybe I'm not pretending. Sebastian closed the door, sealing them both inside this moment of truth. Maybe I remember what it felt like to believe in justice. She turned to face him, and the space between them crackled with electricity. The Mendoza family owns you. I've traced 6 cases where you ruled in their favor despite overwhelming evidence. Cases that should have put their leaders behind bars. Sebastian poured himself 3 fingers of whiskey, his hand surprisingly steady. You don't understand the game you're playing, Alina. Then explain it to me. The way she said his name, soft and pleading, nearly broke his resolve. Sebastian drank deeply before answering. They have my sister. Maria wasn't just missing, she was taken. 14 years ago, when I was nobody, they made me a deal. Play by their rules, and she stays alive. Refuse, and she dies. Alina's expression shifted from suspicion to something that looked dangerously like understanding. So you became their weapon. I became their slave. Sebastian set down his glass and moved closer to her, drawn by a force he couldn't resist. Every case I throw, every criminal I set free, buys Maria another month of life. And now you're threatening to expose the only thing keeping her alive? Show me, Alina whispered. Show me proof she's alive. Show me proof this isn't just another lie from a man who's forgotten what truth feels like. Sebastian reached for his phone, scrolling to a video he received monthly. Maria, older now, but unmistakably his sister, reading from a newspaper to prove the date. Always the same message. Sebastian, I'm safe. Do what they ask. Alina watched the video, her face soft with sympathy that Sebastian didn't deserve. When she looked up at him, her eyes were full of tears. There has to be another way, she said. There is no other way. Sebastian reached out, his fingers barely touching her cheek. Which is why you need to stop. Walk away from this research. Forget what you've found. Forget me. Instead of pulling away, Alina stepped closer. What if I can't? The air between them ignited. Sebastian knew he should step back. Should remember that she was his student, his target, his damnation. He cupped her face in his hands. Then we're both going to burn, he whispered, and kissed her with 14 years of desperation. The abandoned warehouse in Madrid's industrial district stank of rust and fear. Sebastian knelt on the concrete floor, blood trickling from his split lip. While Eduardo Mendoza circled him like a predator savoring its prey, you disappoint me. Judge Rivera, Eduardo's voice, carried the soft menace that had terrified Sebastian for 14 years. I give you a simple task. Silence one troublesome student. Instead, I hear you're sleeping with her. Sebastian said nothing. Beside Eduardo stood 2 men with dead eyes and calloused knuckles. In the shadows, Sebastian could see the outline of a 4th figure, but the darkness hid their identity. Bring her in, Eduardo commanded. Sebastian's heart stopped as 2 more men dragged Alina through the warehouse door. Her hands were bound, her mouth taped, but her eyes blazed with fury rather than fear. She had fought them. Of course she had. Beautiful girl, Eduardo mused, running a finger along Alina's jaw. She jerked away from his touch. Shame she's so. Curious? Leave her alone, Sebastian growled, struggling against the rope binding his wrists. Your problem is with me. My problem is that she knows enough to destroy our entire operation. Did you think I wouldn't find out about her little investigation? About the files she's been copying? The prosecutors she's been contacting? Sebastian's blood turned to ice. Alina had been doing more than research. She had been building a case. Eduardo smiled at Sebastian's expression. Oh, yes. Your little lover is far more dangerous than either of us realized. Show him. One of the men tossed a laptop onto the floor between them. The screen showed dozens of documents, recorded conversations, financial records. Everything needed to expose the web of corruption that had kept Sebastian trapped for 14 years. She's been very thorough, Eduardo said admiringly. Almost professional quality work. Makes me wonder if she's had help. I work alone, Alina said, having torn away the tape covering her mouth. Eduardo backhanded her across the face. Sebastian lunged forward, his rope bindings cutting into his wrists as he tried to reach her. You will watch, Eduardo said calmly, and then you will choose. Your sister's life or your lover's. I'm tired of owning half your heart, Sebastian. Time to find out what you truly value. The figure in the shadows stepped forward, and Sebastian's world shattered. Maria, his sister, alive and whole, wearing expensive clothes and designer jewelry, not a victim, not a prisoner, a partner. "Hello, Sebastian," Maria said, her voice carrying none of the warmth he remembered. "Surprised to see me?" Sebastian couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. 14. Years of slavery, 14 years of believing he was protecting her, and she had been here by choice. "She's been with us from the beginning," Eduardo explained, enjoying Sebastian's devastation. "Your brilliant sister helped design this entire operation. Did you really think a 17-year-old girl could simply disappear without a trace?" "Came to us, Sebastian. She chose us. Why?" The word came out as barely a whisper. Maria knelt beside him, her smile cold as winter. "Because poor doesn't suit me, brother. Because watching our parents scrape pennies together while the powerful lived in palaces made me sick. I found a better way. The videos," Sebastian said numbly. "Acted performances, though I did miss you in the beginning." Maria stood, brushing dust from her expensive coat. "But then I realized how useful your guilt could be. How far your noble heart would take us." Alina was staring at Sebastian with something that might have been pity or disgust. He couldn't tell anymore. "So choose," Eduardo said, pulling a gun from his jacket. "The sister who never needed saving, or the lover who's about to destroy everything you've built. One of them dies tonight. The other gets to live with what you decide." Time crystallized into razor-sharp fragments. Sebastian could hear his own heartbeat, could smell the fierce sweat on his skin, could see the exact moment when Alina understood what he was about to do. "I choose Maria," he said. Eduardo's smile widened. Maria looked pleased. And Alina's face went completely blank, as if something vital had just died behind her eyes. "Interesting," Eduardo mused, pressing the gun against Alina's temple. "Even knowing she betrayed you, family still comes first." "No," Sebastian said quietly. "I choose Maria because she's already dead to me, and because Alina is the only one worth saving." In the split second of Eduardo's confusion, Sebastian threw himself sideways, his shoulder connecting with the crime boss's knees. The gun discharged into the ceiling as both men crashed to the concrete. "Run!" Sebastian shouted. To Alina, chaos erupted in the warehouse. Maria screamed orders. Eduardo's men scrambled for weapons. And Alina, instead of fleeing, grabbed a steel pipe from the floor and swung it at the nearest gunman. Sebastian had trained for moments like this in another life, before law school, when survival meant more than success. His military training kicked in as he rolled away from Eduardo's reaching hands, found the dropped gun, and put 2 bullets in the man who had owned him for 14 years. The warehouse fell silent except for the ringing in Sebastian's ears. Eduardo Mendoza lay in a spreading pool of his own blood, his dead eyes staring at nothing. His men had fled the moment their boss fell. Only Maria remained, pressing herself against the far wall, her face white with shock. "You killed him," she whispered. "Yes." Sebastian helped Alina to her feet, checking her for injuries. A bruise was already forming on her cheek where Eduardo had struck her, but she was alive.
Oh.
"Are you hurt?" "I'm fine." Alina's voice was steady, but her hands shook as she looked around the warehouse. "Sebastian, we need to call the police. Get you into witness protection." With Eduardo dead and all my evidence Maria stepped forward, no longer the terrified girl she had pretended to be. "You don't understand. Eduardo was just middle management. The organization is bigger than him, bigger than all of us." Sebastian kept the gun trained on his sister. "And then we tear it all down. They'll kill you," Maria said. "Both of you."
No.
"Everyone you've ever cared about. Is that what you want? Is she worth dying for?" Sebastian looked at Alina, at this brave, brilliant woman who had risked everything to expose the truth, who had chosen to stay and fight instead of running when she had the chance. "Yes," he said simply. "She is." That's when Alina pulled the second gun from her jacket and pointed it at Sebastian's head. "I'm sorry," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry." Sebastian stared at her in bewilderment. "Alina? My real name is Alina Vasquez," she said, her voice breaking. "Eduardo Mendoza was my uncle." "What?" "This was never about justice, Sebastian. This was about succession. The world tilted sideways. Sebastian felt like he was drowning in air. I was supposed to get close to you, make you fall in love with me, and then eliminate you when Uncle Eduardo gave the order. A judge who couldn't be controlled was becoming a liability. Maria began to laugh, high and hysterical. Oh, this is beautiful. Sebastian, you chose to save the woman sent to kill you. But I couldn't do it, Alina continued, ignoring Maria. I fell in love with you too. Really, truly in love. So I thought if I could expose the organization, if I could tear it down from the inside, maybe we could both be free. So why is the gun pointed at me? Sebastian asked quietly. Because they have someone I love too. Lena's hand trembled, but her aim never wavered. My little brother Carlos is 10 years old. They've had him for 2 months, Sebastian. If I don't kill you tonight, they'll kill him tomorrow. Sebastian understood then. They were all slaves to the same machine, all dancing to strings held by puppet masters in the shadows. All believing they were protecting the people they loved while being used to destroy them. Do it, he said gently. Alina sobbed, but kept the gun steady. What? Pull the trigger, Alina. Save your brother. No. She shook her head violently. There has to be another way. There has to be. The warehouse door exploded inward. Armed men in tactical gear poured through, their rifles trained on all three of them, but these weren't Mendoza's thugs. These were professionals. The man in charge stepped forward, removing his helmet to reveal a familiar face. Detective Luis Santos. Sebastian's former law school roommate, the one person Sebastian had thought was truly clean. Drop your weapons, Luis commanded. All of you. Sebastian let his gun fall to the concrete. After a moment, Alina did the same. Luis, Sebastian said wonderingly. Did you find you? We've been tracking this operation for 3 years, Sebastian. Ever since Alina first contacted us about building a case against the Mendoza family, Sebastian turned to stare at Alina, who wouldn't meet his eyes. That's right, Luis continued. Agent Alina Vasquez, Spanish National Intelligence. Deep cover for 4 years, one of our best. The final betrayal hit Sebastian like a physical blow. Not just a student, not just an assassin, but a federal agent who had played him from the very beginning. Everything was a lie, he whispered. Not everything, Alina said quietly. I'd never lied about loving you. 6 months later, Sebastian sat in a different courtroom. Not as a judge this time, but as a witness. The Mendoza organization had crumbled like a house of cards once he began testifying, revealing a network of corruption that reached into every level of Spanish government. Ria had been sentenced to 15 years. She hadn't looked at him once during the trial. Alina entered the courtroom wearing a simple black suit, her hair pulled back severely. She looked older, harder, like the undercover work had carved pieces of her soul away. She took the witness stand with the same composed determination she had brought to his law lectures. For 3 hours, she detailed her infiltration of the Mendoza family, her recruitment of Sebastian as an unwitting asset, the careful manipulation that had led to Eduardo's death and the organization's destruction. Her voice never wavered. Her eyes never met his. When the prosecutor finished his questioning, the defense attorney stood. Agent Vasquez, he began. You've testified that everything in your relationship with Judge Rivera was calculated for your mission. The romance, the intimacy, the declarations of love. All of it was performance. Alina hesitated for the first time. Sebastian leaned forward, knowing this question would haunt him forever. Professional relationships can become complicated, she answered carefully. That's not what I asked. Were you performing when you told Judge Rivera you loved him? Silence stretched until Sebastian could hear his own heartbeat. No, Alina whispered. That part was real. After the trial, Sebastian found her in the courthouse parking garage. She was leaning against a concrete pillar, smoking a cigarette with shaking hands. I didn't know you smoked, he said. I picked up a lot of bad habits these past few years. She didn't look at him. How are you adjusting to civilian life? Sebastian had been disbarred, of course. His law license revoked, his reputation destroyed. But Luis had helped him find work with a legal aid clinic, defending people who couldn't afford better representation. It felt like penance. It felt like coming home, learning to sleep without nightmares, he said. Some nights are better than others, and the bourbon, it's gone. Turns out I don't need it anymore. Alina flicked her cigarette into the darkness. I'm leaving Spain tomorrow. New assignment. New identity. New life. Will you miss this one? She finally looked at him, and Sebastian saw his own heartbreak reflected in her dark eyes. Every day, she said, will you? Sebastian stepped closer, close enough to touch her if he dared. The lies? No. The manipulation? No. The woman who argued constitutional law with fire in her eyes and made me remember what justice felt like. Her I'll miss until the day I die. Alina closed her eyes. Sebastian, I know. I understand why you did it. All of it. Even the parts that destroyed us. He reached out, his fingers barely brushing hers. I forgive you, Alina, for everything. Hey. And I hope someday you can forgive me for not being strong enough to save us both. When she opened her eyes, tears were streaming down her cheeks. Life, she whispered, we might have met differently. It's fallen in love, honestly. In another life, Sebastian agreed. We might have had forever. She kissed him then, soft and desperate and final. A goodbye that tasted of regret and lost possibilities. I have to go, she said against his lips. I know. Sebastian watched her walk away, her heels echoing in the empty garage until the sound faded to nothing. He stood there long after her car disappeared, memorizing the taste of her goodbye, the weight of her forgiveness. The ache of loving someone he could never have. 2 years later, he would see her face on the news. Agent killed. In the line of duty, no family listed, no details given. Sebastian would set down his coffee cup and walk outside, where he would tell the morning sky about a brilliant woman who had taught him that love and justice could coexist. Even when they couldn't survive, he would speak her real name to the Wyndon. Remember the way she had looked at him in a warehouse, choosing love over orders for one perfect doomed moment. Then he would go back inside and continue the work of helping people who couldn't help themselves, carrying her memory like a prayer in his chest, knowing that some loves are too pure for this world but too precious to forget. The end.